They have been talking trash at each other. They have negotiated with each other. And now, ladies and gentlemen, tonight they talk to each other. And we, the citizens of the United States, get the chance to listen in. Hi, how are you doing out there in internet land? My name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. And welcome to my channel's live coverage of the presidential debate from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania between former President Donald J. Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris, carried by ABC News, moderated by David Meir and Lindsay Davis. We are on Rumble, we are on Twitter, we are on YouTube, and we are going to be here giving you not only our insightful, witty, and normally glorious conversational commentary, we will be here listening to you, our beloved members of the Electronic Front Porch, the members of Fedora Nation, as you bring us information, clips, news, reactions from all over the internet. I have got a bevy of bright-eyed, bushy-tailed commentators, people that you know, friends we haven't seen in a while, and oh my goodness, are we going to start having fun. Glad to have you guys here tonight. Again, my name is Brian Trippett. I'm the Front Porch Conservative. Welcome to live coverage of the debate between President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. We'll start dropping the music, and more importantly, we'll start bringing in the commentators. You know him, you love him. He's number 5 in your programs, number 1 in your hearts. Please welcome my co-host, the inestimable and the irrepressible Ruben Christopher Haynes. Good evening, Ruben.
Good evening. Good evening.
Thank you very much.
I can't wait for tonight.
Oh, this is going to be a gas, baby. This is going to be a gas. From her recently rebranded channel, now known as X Marks the Spot, please welcome the lovely, the gracious, the witty, the funny, the irreverent Tracy Barkley. Good evening, Miss Tracy. How are you?
I'm great. How is everyone? It's so great to be here.
Great to have you here. Great to have you here. And ladies and gentlemen, we are represented from all parts of the country. Ruben is still hiding out in his bunker in Chicago. The volunteer state is represented by the lovely and gracious Tracy Barkley. The Free Republic of Texas is represented by a man who knows what real talk is all about. Please welcome in the incomparable Darius Simpson. Darius, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, Brian. How's everybody doing?
Oh, working and living the dream, my friend. God help us all.
Amen.
Amen. And lastly, he is a son of the plains, the man in motion, the manly man. Please welcome author and YouTube internet provocateur, Mr. Chad Manley. How are you, sir?
Thank you so much for having me. It's been too long.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Let's see who all is settling in the house. Gypsy has battle gear ready. Miss Chaya says, I'm betting Calamity Harris will be loaded drunk and on whatever gave Usurper Biden for the state, whatever they gave Usurper Biden for the state. Possible. You never quite know. Good evening, madame. Ah, yes. We are also represented in the volunteer state by the great Cajun Corey. Okay, and all right. We're glad to have you. And Midmo, welcome. WWG1's over on Rumble. He's in the house. So, yes, folks, let us settle in. Let's get ready. All right. To preview where we are at with this crazy presidential race, I'd like to take your all's attention to the running average at realclearpolitics.com. Straight head-to-head race right now. We've got a separation nationally of 1.1% between Harris and Trump. Knock that down to the multi-candidate. She has just barely a wider lead, but not enough really to be proud of. Go around the battleground states. Pennsylvania is a dead tie if you take all the average of polls. Michigan, Harris has a 1.2% lead. Wisconsin, 1.5% for Harris. North Carolina, Trump with a very slight advantage. And the peach state of Georgia, again, Trump with a very slight advantage. See, it's been a while since I've done this sort of thing. I'm already cutting you guys out, daggone it. Not my intention. A lot is riding on this race tonight. We have one more commentator who will be here shortly. Your reactions. What do both of these people need to do tonight? What do you guys think is going to happen? And Chad, I'll start with you.
Yeah. I think what Kamala Harris needs to do is not die. Her predecessor did so poorly in his debate with Trump that he had to drop out of the race. It was a direct result of his debate performance, and it was because of pressure from both sides, and it was in particular pressure from high-ranking Democrats like Nancy Pelosi, who finally convinced him to drop out of the presidential race. So, unfortunately, what that means, because Kamala Harris, for people who do remember her in 2019, like I do, did not like her, thought she was grating, thought she was awkward, knew that she ran a horrible campaign. She just had no principles. It was just, however far to the left you think I can go, I will go further to signal to people that I can go further to the left, right? The bar is on the floor for her, which means that if she just makes it through the debate seeming somewhat competent, which wouldn't be too tough with muted mic, she can just repeat rehearsed talking points. She does that, I think that's considered a win for her.
Okay.
What Trump needs to do is not let her do that. What Trump needs to do is he needs to really go at her, attack her for the fact that she is currently in the White House. She's trying to distance herself from the Biden administration, but she's in the Biden administration. It was throughout the last 3.5 years, it's been called the Biden-Harris administration, because Biden wanted to make clear, especially in 2020, that votes would also be for her in case she won. In case he died and she had to take over. So bars on the floor for Kamala Harris. Trump really needs to attack her weaknesses, and she has plenty of them.
Absolutely. Darius, I'll throw it over to you. A lot has been made. This thing has almost been hyped like super fight, Ali versus Frazier way back in the day. And, I'll save my thoughts to the end, but where do you think is going to happen, and what do you think both of these people have to do?
Well, largely, I agree with everything Chad just said. And I think if Trump's going to go after her, because Trump's going to be Trump. So he was very measured and calculated in his debate with Biden. That was a lot of people raved on that particular point. So I agree. If he can rein in and stay focused on the issues and attack her weaknesses, as Chad said, she has plenty of them. He has a plethora of opportunity to hit her there. And he stays on point with policies and not attack her as a person per se. He's going to probably take at least a couple of shots at her using her own words. But generally speaking, if he stays on point, if he stays measured and calculated, like he did in the Joe Biden debate, then he should really be able to wipe the floor with her. Now, I know she's going to try to goat him into attacking her, making it a man versus woman type thing, a white man against a black woman type thing. I can definitely see that, because that is at times his weakness. But I believe him and his team is going to have a very good strategy to help control everything. Now, she probably tried to pull, I saw yesterday, I believe it was, or this morning, where Trump said, I'm not going to let her do to me what she did to Mike Pence, when she kept telling him, I'm talking, or something to that effect. And so she really dissed him. So Trump don't take that from nobody. It don't matter who you are, male or female, black, white, he doesn't care. So if he just stands his ground, stay focused, he's going to be just fine. But her and her team is definitely going to try to goat him into an all-out attack.
Absolutely. Now, before we go to our next commentator, Chad, I noticed that feline going around. Have you marked that one safe from Haitians? Inquiring minds need to know. Look, we love you. We love your animals out there on the plains. We just got to make sure, is everybody okay? 2-legged and 4-legged a kind.
Yeah. So I did send pictures to my mom, because I said, Mom, name her. And she chose the name Boots. So Boots will be safe for the night. I can't speak about the future. There are lots of predators in the area. Yeah.
In more ways than one.
Marked Boots' Facebook page will say marked safe from Haitians.
Very good. All right. Tracy, we're gonna Yeah, yeah. Never let it be said, ladies and gentlemen, that these live streams that we host are dull. That's all I'm going to tell you right now. Tracy, I'm going to throw it to you. What I mean, let me ask you. Let me ask you this: who really needs to succeed more tonight, Trump or Harris?
Um, I think to keep any sort of campaign going, Kamala has to be more successful tonight because
Okay, how is that defined though? What is success for her in this?
I kind of agree with everybody else saying it's not totally humiliating herself.
Okay,
I really think that I mean I heard Tulsi Gabbard this morning on Fox. She says that Trump is ready,
okay,
and I truly believe Tulsi when she says that. I think he's going to do to Kamala what Tulsi did to Kamala back in the primaries, and I think he's going to do it tenfold. And I think if he can keep coming back at her with policy and just not as Darius said, not hit her ad hominem attacks, just go after her policies, use her own words to hang her, just like he did with Biden. And that's Trump's specialty. I mean, God, he's a roast master. He's going to be able to really hammer in on her. And I think if he can keep calm and cool and collected, just keep doing that. The way she succeeds is not getting frustrated and let her own words hang her. But I don't see that happening. I think Trump is going to addle her, and I think she's going to hang herself because
very true.
she only released policy like after midnight last night on her website for the exact reason that Trump's team doesn't have time to dissect it. But as we saw this morning on X, JD Vance has already analyzed and subsidized that stuff, and I'm sure Trump's going to be ready with it. Only Trump has been talking about his policy since 2020,
Yep.
and it really hasn't changed. She has nothing on Trump when it comes to policy.
That is very true. And, this is going to be fascinating to watch. Let me get a couple of Rumble rants in. Thank you, Zippy, very much. His first one says, Comrade Kamala should be 20 points lower, but here we are. His second one, and by the way, in case, and I have to set this up to explain the tweet, or not the tweet, but the Rumble rant. Zippy identifies as a human and as a feline cat. In his second Rumble rant, he says, I am a dark overlord. I eat people. No one eats this pussy. Okay, thank you, Zippy, very much. Like I said, never let it be said these live streams are anything but spicy. The professor. Thank you for being here in the audience tonight. I realize you couldn't join us, brother, but cannot wait to hear your analysis of this on your own page and on Twitter. It's going to be very, very interesting. Ruben, the wizened Yoda of this council. What say you as we get ready for this debate?
Kamala is framing this debate as the fight of an underdog over an overshadowing figure. In the Democratic National Convention, they poised Trump as the enemy of the people. And she is poising herself as the one that's going to come out and fight for America. So as that underdog aspect, and the mainstream media is already touting that, so then all she needs to do is not get knocked out. She has to spar point for point against Trump. Unfortunately, if she's over prepared, it's going to come off as inauthentic. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be a downfall because people will start seeing this. Because just like before the Biden Trump debate, everyone was saying how sharp Biden was until the debate.
Yeah.
So if they are telling us how Kamala is before, and then that debate performance goes as I think it will go, then her complete campaign or run will collapse. And I think that's why they did this. They actually put her up because if they didn't do this, then she would be a threat in 2028. And now they say, here, it's your turn. Go up there and do it. Because they, in their mind, the mainstream media and everybody else, if Trump does get in, that 2 years from now, they can work on getting, congressmen in and doing those things. But Trump, all he has to do is just, stay on focus. The idea of the mics being muted actually benefited him in the last debate, which they thought it was going to be a detriment to him. So just keep focused on what you're doing in the policy. And he's done, I believe, 47 or more interviews, and she hasn't done anything except for the one that was, clipped. So again, this is her time to prove herself, but it should be other collapse, in my opinion.
Could very well be. For my part, here's where I think they're at. She has more writing on this debate than he does. In this respect, she has got to prove two things. Number one, she can stand toe-to-toe with him and not screw it up, which by screw it up, I mean revert to common known Kamala. The cackling, the word salad statements, the everything else. That's the first part of it. The other part of it is she's got to be able to prove she's tough enough to go toe-to-toe with Trump for 90 minutes. Because here's the unspoken argument he's got to make. Look, if she can't deal with me, she can't deal with Xi Jinping of China. She cannot deal with Vladimir Putin of Russia. She can't deal with any of these world leaders. I can. I'm tough. I'm Trump. Everybody knows what they're going to get with me if I go out on the world stage. All Trump has to do in this is simply go out, make your points, go after her record. Yeah, you're going to take your shots. The fear that the thing that I think Kamala's handlers are worrying about is, it's like I described it last night. If she reaches back for one of those verbal haymakers and she extends that jab out too far, the opening is there and Trump seizes on it. That's the worry. And it should be, because, Tracy and I were recounting, backstage before we went live, that great moment in 2016 when Hillary Clinton said, thank God that no one, like Donald Trump is in charge of American, the American legal system. And then Trump retorted, yeah, because you'd be in jail. And it was a mic drop moment.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
The first debate in 2024, Biden gives this rambling, stumbling answer. And then Trump looks over and goes, I'm not sure what he said. And I'm not sure he knows what he said.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's, I think, the big worry for them. Go ahead, Ruben.
But what's interesting here is the fact that people will think he's debating a woman and he can't put a woman in her place. He's already debated Hillary Clinton, a far better candidate.
Oh yes, absolutely.
So again, again,
he's going to show her the meaning of equality.
To say that Hillary Clinton was the better candidate of the two of them.
I know.
Well, I know it's a pretty low bar for both of them, but still, yeah, I mean, exactly.
I know, but you remember
between Hillary and Kamala, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To say that Hillary Clinton was smarter.
But you remember when Hillary goes in front of Congress, she's commanding. When Kamala goes in front of Congress and says something, it's complete word salad.
Yeah.
Again, remember Benghazi, and remember all this stuff that happened with it. It didn't go anywhere, or it didn't. There was no gotcha moment for her. But Kamala is open for these things. So again, I'm here for the. I'm here. I wish I had popcorn because I want to see this flame out really quickly. I do. I just want this. Put this
Tracy,
away.
Tracy, I'll throw it to you.
No, I think Kamala's going to end up Karen in herself, like becoming a Karen at some point, carrying out tonight. And I think Trump's going to goad her. They're worried about Kamala goading Trump. I think it's going to be the opposite. I think Trump is going to be calm, cool, and collected and goad her into having a Karen moment. And I'm here for it.
I am with you. Now, we've got about 11. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say one thing that there are a lot of things I'm looking forward to about tonight, but one thing in particular, just seeing what people were saying on Twitter after the first debate and just talking to people about it, IRL, it seems like people really like the debate format, actually. I think people like order, and especially with Trump, if you think about, the first debate with Biden in 2020, where it was just constant talking, constant interruption, people like order. They want to feel like, it at some points, it felt like adults discussing policy and issues, maybe not for the entire thing, but at some points. And I think people enjoyed that. So that is something that I hope voters are really going to appreciate tonight as well. Just the format, the idea of, okay, this candidate is talking. When they're done, then the other candidate gets to talk. It's not going to be shouting over each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
Point. That's an excellent point, because it goes back to traditional debates, and over the last 4 years or so, we've really been lost on that. I mean, even 2022, when these other lower offices, these other politicians was running for like state political positions and stuff, they actually basically did away with it. They took Joe Biden's 2020 campaign strategy of hiding in the basement. They didn't really have a lot of debates, and even if they had a few debates, it's still like with Warnock, you still had this slant where the media was portraying, of course, the right is basically the devil, or demonizing them, while they made their left look like they was glorified successful politicians. So, but yeah, I agree 100%.
All right. It looks like we're down to about 8 minutes before the debate formally starts. So let me just sort of lay out how we're going to do this, at least from the vantage point of this live stream. When the debate starts, we're going to slip off to the side. Since I am sort of like computering and doing, host stuff, I probably won't be making that many comments. My fellow contributors are at liberty to, interject their comments, laughter, derision as they feel appropriate. Our job in this is to let you all enjoy the debate as much as we possibly can. Now, there are going to be 2 commercial breaks. If this goes the way they did with CNN, I have a feeling the first break is going to be about midway through the debate. The second one will be just before the closing statements. During the commercial breaks, we'll come back in, we'll inject our comments. When everything is over, we're going to bring it back here for some wide open, turn it loose commentary, the kind of stuff that we are known for and that you love us for, by the way. In the meanwhile, there's that scoundrel. I was wondering when he was going to show up. Ladies and gentlemen, he is an artist, a warrior, and a poet, a man of the Keystone State. Please welcome the incomparable, inestimable, and irrepressible, and yeah, I'm running out of ears, so let's just bring him in. Daniel, how you doing, brother?
Quite the introduction. Thank you.
Well, one does one's best. Anyway, we're glad to have you here. As I was just saying, when the debate starts, we're going to slip off to the side. We will interject as appropriate, but of course, we want you guys to be able to hear it. We'll come back in the commercial breaks, let everybody kind of hear what's going on or hear some quick thoughts. We'll do a round robin at the end of it. And please, don't let this just be about us. If you find reactions out there on the internet, because I know Ruben, he is constantly scanning Twitter during this sort of thing.
Ruben will just randomly pause, put his video off, go off to the side, rant on the phone, post it, and then come back.
Yeah, he has a history of that sort of thing, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I'm doing that now. I'm doing that now. I'm done. I'm done.
We want this to be as interactive and as fun for you, the audience, as it is for us as the hosts. So please tag us in tweets during the debate. We will do our best to try and get as much in as we possibly can.
Yeah, cut all the funniest, stupidest clips out.
Yeah, the cat memes especially, because, oh my Lord, people are having a glorious field day when a congressman melts down in a congressional hearing over a meme. We have reached maximum penetration to get in someone's head. That's all I'm saying.
Of course it was Swalwell. Of course it was them.
Yes, otherwise known, AKA Bang Bang with Fang Fang.
Bang.
Yeah, yes.
Well, what's funny is
anytime he melts down,
you had Marjorie Taylor Greene, you had Nancy Mace purposely go and blank out it and say, "Go at it, internet, meme all you want on him," and they did.
And then frickin' Nadler too. I can't stand him.
I know.
Stand Nadler.
But anyway, please tag us in tweets. You know, whatever. We'll do our best. We want to see reactions from out there because, like I say, I mean, the first debate we had a glorious good time. You know, because I mean, almost immediately after that first debate ended between Biden and Trump, the reactions were in, and it was like all over the place. So yeah, hit us with it again. We want to make this as fun for you as we possibly can. So, you know, we're so glad you guys are here tonight. One last round of introductions before we get this party started. My name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. This is Ruben Christopher Haynes. Tracy Barkley from Gen X Marks the Spot. Author and provocateur Chad Manley. From Real Talk, Darius Simpson. And warrior, poet, artist Daniel De La Fay. We are here tonight for live coverage of the presidential debate from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania between former President Trump and current Vice President Kamala Harris. This is, to borrow an old expression from back in the day, this is going to be a gas.
Yeah,
no one knows what. I think that's why everybody's tuned in.
I've been thinking about it all day, honestly. I am very curious how it's going to play out. Curious is the word for me. Curious. I'm very curious.
I'm nervous, but in a good way.
Go ahead, Tracy.
No, go ahead, Darius. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say. Honestly, I told Brian. I think right after maybe a couple weeks ago, I said I didn't think it was going to happen. I thought it was 50-50. Just how things were playing out. But yeah, I'm very curious.
I figured they would push it like this, you know, wait as long as possible. I think they're doing that with a lot of things. You know, we've mentioned that before. Like last time I was on here, I brought up the 25th Amendment. Like, are they waiting to play that card? You know, right. Is that a card that they're keeping in their back pocket in case they need it? You know, depending how this goes, right? So how this debate goes. And
I really hope Trump brings to the attention of everyone that she's only done one true interview where he's been town halls and interviews and everything.
He has not stopped, man. He has
16-minute pre-recorded gobbledygook. Yeah. If he doesn't bring that out, he's missing a key opportunity.
You're right. He better bring that out. I would be totally surprised if he don't bring that out.
The contrast is so glaring, but just like the people who are just all on board with her and the Democrats, they're blind to it, or they are ignoring it. They don't care. They actually don't care.
I know people that are blue no matter who, and they would literally vote for a corpse.
They just don't care. They don't care.
They don't care about country as long as Trump doesn't get back in. That's all they care about.
Whereas to me, and I'm speaking as the independent in the House and the unaffiliated voter here, to me, I just find it, well, you don't want my vote. That's the way I see it. It's like you don't want to talk to me as an American citizen. You don't want to tell me what you're all about and what your agenda is and what you plan to do, and you don't want my vote. That's how I see it, and I view it as a disrespectful thing.
You know, it's funny. It's funny you say that because you bring up a very valid point. You would think that an individual, man or a woman, Democrat or Republican, if you're going to ask to be the leader of 330 million people in a nation, that you would want to draw as many people to you as you can.
You need to talk to
what you want to do. Yeah, exactly.
You need to talk to us. If you don't talk to us, we're going, like, those of us who take this serious are going to take you serious. And what it comes down to is, all Trump's flaws aside,
2-minute warning.
He is talking to the American people. He's trying. He's going on the podcasts. He's going even on places like I didn't think he would go, like talking to Theo Vaughn. I thought that was interesting.
Lex Friedman.
Friedman. So it's just, Trump is making that effort. She's not. So it's like, do you want my vote or not? Clearly you don't.
It's especially important for her to make that effort because she wasn't in the primaries.
Yes.
She didn't get a single vote.
Yes.
This was done, this was done behind closed doors in the
White House.
More
important
in the Democratic Party. It's like, it is so important that she goes out and actually tries to connect with the voters, and she's not doing it.
Yeah.
That's the remarkable part to me.
Yeah, and Trump has made his rounds. He went to Chicago. He's been, I think it was to Atlanta. He goes pretty much anywhere.
Vegas, everywhere. I mean, there are areas I wish he would hit. And I brought this up about Kennedy. The fact that he went to my hometown, that was very important to me, and I did pay attention to him because of that. Trump won't do that. He'll just go to New York.
Oh no! Did you see where he's going Friday?
Where's he going?
Los Angeles.
Interesting.
That's what I said.
I think it's awesome he's going to blue states.
Interesting.
What's even more
Trump's
awesome
holding
is Kamala's finding it necessary now that she has to go campaign in blue states.
Well, it goes back to what we're saying. Trump is trying to talk to the American people, and he's even willing to go over to those places where he would think they would hate
Unfriendly
him.
territory.
Yeah, and to try to talk to them. So it's
That's
very
the key.
strategic. It's smart.
Okay, folks, we're down to 20 seconds. We're gonna
shit.
slip. We're gonna slip off to the side. Again, my fellow commentators,
I'm gonna go get coffee. I'll be right back.
Interject as you feel appropriate. And folks, we hope that you enjoy watching this with us as much as we're going to enjoy watching it. And with that, we are now going to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania for live coverage of the presidential debate between Donald Trump and
here in Philadelphia between
Kamala
Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Their first face-to-face meeting in this presidential election, their first face-to-face meeting ever.
A historic race for president upended just weeks ago. President Biden withdrawing after his last debate. Donald Trump now up against a new opponent.
The candidates separated by the smallest of margins, essentially tied in the polls nationally and in the key battlegrounds, including right here in Pennsylvania, all still very much in play. The ABC News presidential debate starts right now.
This is an ABC News special, the most consequential moment of this campaign. Kamala Harris.
Together, we will chart a new way forward.
Donald Trump.
We will soon be a great nation again.
Face to face, historic. The ABC News presidential debate. Here now, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Good evening, I'm David Muir, and thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
Nice to see you. Have fun.
Thank you.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid. And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing. And the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounce back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy. And the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan. And it's like sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something.
Run, spot, run.
The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response. And you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, ! When we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's got my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, is doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions, very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well,
to
I
your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50 and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea, and how unfair that would have been. Part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free, but they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. in all fairness. J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. So wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. what is happening in our country. Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I
thank
have
you.
to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer the question? Would you
because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question, would you veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first. And I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris,
oh my God.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. People that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country. And it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country. And if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from television.
But the people on television saying their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme. This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the Republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not maliciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper, he was no good, I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they? But they do such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier. So let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But
excuse me, the FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people
Vice President
to stop
Harris,
him.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a fake Russia investigation
We do have a lot
that went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on longstanding work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your response?
First of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. She went out.
Oh my God, you go, Trump!
Minnesota, and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail.
You got her.
She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish, one thing so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead. Fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400, 500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that
for
we
the
have to get
environment,
to.
as
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully.
Heard it with my own ears.
Patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Seattle. They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
you. You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were involved on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi.
Boo.
It's getting good, y'all. It's getting good.
And the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the president of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand,
it's a lie.
The president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason.
Yep.
But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate.
Don't say both sides.
The president then at the time say?
Don't say it.
She's going to.
People on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this
fuck off
election is not to his liking.
Wrong.
Turn the page on this. Let's not go back.
Fucking 3 lines in a row.
The course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this, you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The president of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Right. You'll say, come on, come back to the office, let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that.
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically.
That.
You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about it. An election is fraudulent. We need 2 things. We need walls. And we have to have it. We have to have borders and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
no
Republican.
Judge looked at it.
And said
they said we didn't have standing. That's the other thing. They said a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald
you're
Trump
reading the
was
witness?
fired by 81 million people.
David's a
So
punk.
let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election.
No.
And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as vice president of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart, Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline.
Yep.
The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that, but he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time is
I think we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters, because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation. And now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on national security, including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Okay,
The
folks.
moderators are so bad.
Oh, I know.
They're leading. They're again ABC. Remember, ABC. The leader of ABC News is a personal close friend of Kamala Harris, and in fact knows Doug Imhoff, and it actually is the person who introduced them to each other.
Yeah,
and the way that Muir and even the other one has been asking. I don't know what her name is. They ask leading questions, and they're helping her along.
Yes,
which is good. And
that's
again,
what
you
it feels
see
like.
this.
Oh
Yeah.
What I
It's
will
so
say though is
obvious.
she's picking it up well. She's taking the help for sure, and she's using it to her advantage as well as she can. Obviously lying like fucking crazy.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
she's holding her own in this, and Trump got frustrated.
But I think
Two
holding
parts.
her own means that she got the questions before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think you're probably right about that.
Most of her debate training, I think, was about how to talk her way out of questions, because usually in the past we've seen when there's a question she doesn't want to answer, that's when she turns into word salad.
Yeah,
I think most of her debate prep was, how do I talk about like my personal experiences, even if they're not true, even if I make them up? How do I talk about those to avoid the question? That's why she said that she was a middle-class kid or something. It's like, no, you were not a middle-class kid, Kamala Harris.
Yeah. Also,
Tracy?
Oh no,
Tracy.
go Tracy.
No, go ahead. I thought you wanted to jump in.
No, I was just saying that I think it's obvious that it's moderators and Kamala versus Trump at this point.
Absolutely. Daniel?
I was going to mention.
I'm pleasantly surprised by how Trump has handled himself. Yeah, he got sidetracked by the whole rally thing. I wish he had done
I
a
agree.
little more reserved on that. But overall, I think he's doing a great job bringing it back to the points that the American people need to hear.
Yeah. Daniel?
I was going to bring up the fact that Kamala Harris said that January 6th was the worst attack on America since the Civil War.
Yep.
On the eve of 9/11, which is
I was about to say, I think
fucking
9/11
crazy.
is a little bit worse than
Which
that.
is fucking crazy when you think about it. Like a really bold move. Like, wow.
People are talking about that right now. You got Dr. Robert Malone talking about it. You've got Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about the lies of Charlottesville of 2025. People are complaining. They also Viva Fry is complaining about ABC being a disgrace and how they're handling it right now. So
yeah, I agree. I'm keeping an eye on the screen, folks. We're going to take it back there immediately when I see them coming out of break. But this is. I mean, Trump's fighting 3-on-1 here, which he asked for it. In this respect, he knew what he was walking into here. I don't think. I mean, if the ABC moderators did the exact same as far as, not trying to fact check during a live debate, this thing is, running away with it. Right. For my part, we're watching Joe Biden in a dress. There's there's no argument that she's making that Joe Biden would otherwise do himself. The Democrats now have a candidate that can make their arguments, number one, cogently and not fall asleep doing it. That's all we've got here. There's fundamentally no difference between the two of them.
Right.
There's really not.
The next time that she says it's time to turn the page, Trump needs to remind her and the people watching, she is currently in the White House. She has been running the show for 3.5 years. Turn the page on what exactly?
Exactly.
Real talk.
Or we're not going to go back. Yeah, no, actually, we'd like to go back to cheap gas prices, lower food prices, peace in the world, a strong southern border. That's what we'd like to go back to, Kamala, but you won't let us because you think you need to go forward. Well,
I want to say this real quick, and I know it's going to probably rub some people the wrong way, and I might bring it up again tonight. I know I wrote it down so I would lose my thought. I know some people are going to believe that Trump should have been more conventional. Okay. He just stand there, be a statue, say all the perfect and right things, use the right inflection tones and all that kind of stuff. Now we all probably know somebody who is more orally polished than Donald Trump. We probably can all agree to that.
Yeah.
But where are they? If those people are more go ahead.
Darius, I got to cut you off. They're coming back in. So we're going to slip off to the side, and folks, we'll be right back.
Again, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back to this historic ABC News presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here.
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president, you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell 100,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you for both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and now, please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strong men instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this. And the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not again appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is.
What kind of question was that?
You make a deal out of something. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words. So
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who
that's a tragedy.
Who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people.
You didn't answer the question.
I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to Black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young Black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread murder lies about the first Black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that. want better than this. Want someone who understands as I do. I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your third time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said, going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park Five. They admitted, they said, they pled guilty.
Yep.
And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time's up.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country.
Oh, yeah.
One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of
Joy.
the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas.
That's it?
Hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name calling. Let's turn the page.
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's
Trump,
turn back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy,
She has
please.
a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's
you,
what
Mr.
her
President.
plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond
President
because
Trump,
the
President
former
Trump.
president has twice that I need
I
to
just need to respond. I just need to respond.
Move on, Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this
multiple
is
times.
now your
Yes.
third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish.
Yes, please, God.
Saying you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan? And can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being... you don't like him, you said at the time, because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
In terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot of...
She made a mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get. People are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said the climate change is a hoax.
It is a hoax.
what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. They're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Yeah. We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
All right, folks, let's bring it back in. Guys, your responses.
Love it. I love it. I think Trump is, again, as I was saying earlier, I know people disagree in some respects that Trump should just simply tamper down a little bit and just stay all very perfectly poised and say punctuate everything, every word, every letter, everything in a perfect tone, all that kind of stuff. I get that. However, Obama was very good at orating and sharing his vision and his story, and he turned out to be a big liar to practically to all of us. So it's not always the delivery that's important, even though that is a part of it. I think when you can deliver your points with your weaknesses, but you stay on point for the most part, you're able to cover a lot of ground and make a lot of valid points. So I think Trump is doing really good. But I will say, as somebody else said earlier, I am surprised in one sense that Kamala seems to be holding her ground. But yeah, I think we're being set up for something.
I think Trump is missing way too many opportunities.
Go ahead, Chad.
I think Trump is missing way too many opportunities.
Agreed.
He's been teed up so well by Kamala Harris to really attack her own stuff, and he doesn't take it. They asked her, and I sent this tweet to the group, but they asked her if she bore any responsibility for the 13 dead American service members from the Afghanistan withdrawal. And she just completely ignored that part of the question.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, she ignored the 13 dead Americans mentioned in the question, just like she's been ignoring them for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And Trump should have said, you haven't even called them. They can't get a call back from the White House.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You couldn't name a single one of those 13 Americans. I've talked with them. He didn't go after her. Like, it's such a missed opportunity. It's like that, like time and time again.
Agreed. I can't disagree with you. I mean, there's stuff he's leaving on the table. Like, I was reading a tweet from Rich Barris, the pollster. Why is he not going after her on challenging her on how much she knew about Biden's cognitive decline? Why that's been left on the table. Yeah.
Well, again, there was no real opening for it. Well, theoretically, basically, but who knows what might happen. I've been covering everything. I'll say it after we write everything down.
Yeah, and the professor has weighed in. I don't know about winning the debate, but she's held her own. She has absolutely held her own on this.
Well, I think a lot of people are going to say that she won this debate simply because she stayed in it. She didn't get all emotionally flustered like most people thought. Like we all thought she might cackle. Now, I did think they would have her well prepped as well if we was going to go along with this debate. However, these are the exact same people. Like somebody mentioned earlier, they talked about how intelligent and on point, how sharp Joe Biden was. These are also the same people who talked about the Russia collusion hoax. These are also the same people who pushed the January 6th insurrection. These are also the same people who pushed that the Hunter laptop wasn't real, plus 51 former FBI agents or whoever officials signed off and it was a lie. So if we want to listen to what the mainstream has to say and some of the other media pundits has to say about this, just because they say this looks like she's won and she done a great job does not make it true. We need to fact check this, but what we need to do is get a collage of all those videos over the last go all the way back to 2016 up to now, and then put these few things together and do a comparison. But ain't nobody gonna well, on the mainstream media side of it, they won't do that.
Correct.
I agree with Darius, but also I think, despite the fact that she really isn't doing well, she's not really answering questions. She's doing well at not answering questions. And she's doing well at lying and how she's lying and the way she's doing it. That's what she's doing well. And her delivery is doing well. And that's all these people really care about at the end of the day. It's like that's how clean cut, sharp, charming Obama got into office and stayed on it and ran again and won again. It's the same thing. They like the good speaking, clean cut person who seems like the nice, normal one and shit. And then her trying to contrast herself now with the giggling and I'm full of joy. And why are you just saying everything is just so bad? And
we need to turn the page.
I think America is great and we need to move on. It's just, I find that patronizing. I don't know about other viewers, but I find it patronizing.
Folks, they're coming back in for the closing statements. We're going to go back and listen in.
Welcome back. Time has come for closing statements.
Moderators, where is our president?
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future and the other that is focused on the past and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was the DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
Leave it there, leave it there, leave it there, leave it there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we are here live on ABC with our post-debate comments.
Well, ABC can have their post-debate comment. We're going to have the comments that matter the most. All right, folks. If you're stopping in, my name is Brian Tripp, and I'm the Front Porch Conservative. We have just concluded watching the debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Spirited debate. Jabs on both sides. I'm not sure anybody landed a clear and decisive victory, although I gotta say, on points, I hate to say this, I think Kamala beat him on points.
I think his ending remarks could have been stronger. Hers seemed more rehearsed. It seemed more like she really prepared for that and knew exactly what she was going to say, how she was going to say it. Him, it seemed like he was just kind of plucking the points he takes to end his speeches or to say in his speeches, and that he's been doing on the campaign trail. So if you've listened to him throughout the campaign trail, you'll see that the things he said really was just that. But I don't know. It didn't feel. It's Trump, but I just feel like the people who hate him aren't going to be swayed by that. They're going to just see that and be like, all right, it's Trump being angry Trump. He talked about the dangerous immigrants and they're dangerous and stuff, and he's a racist. And they're not going to hear anything else. That's Tracy. How I see it.
Tracy, you've been sitting there teed up all evening. I'm going to give you the chance to drive it down the fairway. Go, girl.
You know, he didn't do as well as I would have liked for him to do, but yep. I think overall he did a solid job, and I think he got in a few jabs, and I was actually encouraged by his final statements. Do I think he set the world on fire? No, but I think he reinforced the people that would already support him, and I think he gave independent voters something to think about, and I think it was pretty obvious in her responses that she still hasn't put any sort of plan out there. She didn't really give us any sort of truth about what she's going to be doing. I think it was all political speak, and I hope that enough people picked up on that they won't be swayed by all the word salad.
I just felt he could have said more, I guess, is how I felt about his final words overall. It's just, I don't know, I feel like that he had a chance to really say something more powerful, and he kind of just said what he would normally say, which I guess you could argue is like, you know, Tracy is saying is his base. That's what they want to hear.
Yeah,
But
and
other
I
people who
do give
aren't
him
his
credit
base,
for
though,
not.
are other people who aren't his base are watching, I guess is my point.
I
And you
do
need to
give him
take that
credit for
into
not completely
consideration.
going off the rails and losing it, and calling her a bitch.
Yeah, he did. He
national
didn't
TV.
name call. He didn't name call.
No, not at all. He didn't. He never attacked her. In fact, I was really impressed when he said, "I don't care what she is." That's like that.
Yeah,
was
well,
pretty
he
cool.
dodged that question, which was good. It was,
Yeah.
you know, he is like, I'm not even going to touch on that because it's not relevant to this. We're not talking about race. So I thought that was well done.
Well, I think in Chicago, when he was having his speech, when he was not speech, but when he was being interviewed, they brought that to his attention as well. And he basically said the same thing. He didn't attack. He said, all I saw, she said she's Indian. She said she's, I mean, what
Which
else?
is true.
Exactly. I mean, there is video online if they had not banned it that shows that. So, I mean, and then on top of it, someone put in the comments too, is that in terms of when she was the attorney general, she put a lot of black men in prison. By the way, let's talk about that. But anyway, I think that. I mean, I agree with it. What everybody's saying as far as we wish he had attacked a few more issues, and it definitely.
Well, what you just said about her as a prosecutor, he should have really touched on that stuff more and brought up her past. And he should have been with that race question, be like, oh, well, you want to talk about race? What about Miss Harris over here when she was prosecutor and locking up all these people?
Right.
So he definitely, I don't know, he could have done better. So I understand why Brian feels like Harris more came out stronger in the end.
Well, like I said, she did do better than all, if not most of us, expected. But I like I said, I already know people. It's the Twitter and all this other stuff's going to go online, especially the left side of the aisle. They're going to definitely CNN, MSNBC. All going to say she won. I get all that. That's going to happen.
That's going to happen.
But, for me, the contextual, the big picture is this: Trump has won with him being brash and direct with folks and very transparent in his unscripted and imperfect way of communicating with people. He has won the presidency in 2016 against a very qualified, very evil, but very qualified candidate in Hillary Clinton. Then in 2020, he goes against Joe Biden, and we pretty much know what happened with that situation. But he could have won that outright. Now he's right back in office, in position, more popular than ever because he speaks to everybody. Now, though he's circling the wagon, so to speak, trying to talk to as many people as he can, the American people directly, because the mainstream media is not going to help him. They're going to help hurt him.
Oh, yeah.
I think with him doing that, he's still getting some new voters, but for people who really are focused on what their party is, more than anything, you're not changing their minds. So,
I agree.
They have to come to this side of the aisle so people, or at least support Trump. You got to like the man, but his policies. Matter of fact, I sent something to Brian a while ago. Trump's, and you ain't got to show it all, but Trump's policies, the agenda they keep to my Project 2025, which I'm surprised they didn't talk a whole lot about that tonight. He has an agenda called Agenda 2047, and people should check it out. It's like 20 key points of what his administration is going to be all about. So, yes, Trump, by people's different metrics, he did not do a perfect job. No, like in the Biden debate, I don't think it was great and history making in that sense, but I still believe it was a very important debate to have. And that in the leading up to November, we're going to definitely see some very, very important things happen.
Ruben?
So we have to remember something. This is the third time that Trump has been running an election, 2016, 2020, now 2024. The distinction now that we have that is different from any other election is we have the free speech platform of X that be able to fact check. Right. Previously in 2020 and 2016, you didn't have that. And what ABC News and all the news media is, they are going to run their narrative to support Kamala. Her performance, she did very well. and again, I attribute this to just a couple factors. Number one, she's friendly with ABC. She knows people, and she did get the questions beforehand. That is
I think so.
That is the only reason why she did how well she did. Now, on the difference, and then Trump himself had to play defense because this was not a debate between Kamala Harris and Trump. It was a debate between Trump and ABC News / Kamala Harris. ABC News was involved. Yeah. It was a 3-on-1 debate.
Yep.
Yes, we have to remember that. So the topics that we covered today, let's run through them real quickly. The economy, abortion, illegal immigration, election integrity, Israel and Hamas, Russia, Ukraine, NATO, Afghanistan, race, insurance, and climate change. That's what we covered. Now, under the economy, we know already that the economy sucks right now. And again, the mainstream media, and you had people like Don Lemon talk about it when they were questioning people on the street saying the economy is great right now, because again, on the news is saying that it's great. And when you have Trump telling the truth, and then you have the figures that ABC is coming out, well, was president so and so, then again, they are lying to the American people. They will tout the fact that he said these things. And again, what do people see on their kitchen table? And I wish that Trump had at the end had that Reagan-esque moment. Are you better off than you have been 4 years ago? Just try to reach it out. He didn't win in the 3.5 years, but you have to do that. Regarding the abortion,
at the end, he sort of did when he brought up like, what has she done? She hasn't been in office, and where all the things that she did.
Correct.
Well, I get what you mean. Is he really should have like reached more for people and
exactly.
to think about that? Be like, are you actually better off? Like, really think about it. Think about your food bill. Think about the gas prices. Think about everything else. Not just honing in on the war. Like, yes, that's important. Correct. But he should have definitely honed in on that stuff more.
Yeah, and everything that she's bringing up again, the $25,000, we know that is going to raise up the price of housing all over the world. Yeah. The idea of we're going to take care of the price of things. That's price control. We know, and she's not saying it. She's just saying that. That's what we're going to do there. Regarding abortion, still going off the idea that Trump is going to go for a national ban to scare women. She's going for the women vote. And again, Trump's been saying it. It's again, that's the whole thing. I myself I'm going to start an NGO to get back to the 10th Amendment, because the 10th Amendment is very important to me. All powers that are not enumerated in the Constitution go to the states. Yeah. And I want that, because again, there's too much regulation, too much bloating going on, and then he has to tout that aspect of small, limited government, and that's what he did there. But again, she appeals to the female aspect, the emotional. She's
emotional. Yep.
Everything is emotional. Economy. I'm here to help you. I will take care to lower prices. I will give you this money for you.
Yeah. If you have a baby, here's money. Like, and who's paying for that? Like,
right. Right. But again, it's the whole, we're in the same boat together. We didn't all come together. We had to get, she didn't go there.
Her whole plan, it really is just hand money out. And it's like, what we need is more opportunities to make our own money. That's what we need. And that's what Trump is running on. Whereas she's saying, we're going to just hand you more money, but we don't need that. And here's one thing I will say that I do disagree with Trump on, although I guess he was kind of pressured into doing it, printing out stimulus money and handing it out. Like, I get it. They closed everything down, and he wanted to try to help people because states were closing down. And I get that, but it just runs inflation up. It's borrowing from yourself in the future. We don't need more of that.
But that when that happened, that did backfire in 2022, because the amount that the Republican Congress gave people was $600, and that felt like an insult due to the pandemic. Now, going back here to illegal immigration. Yeah, illegal immigration. When they brought it up, again, ABC News basically said, well, the city manager says that doesn't exist. Again, a city manager who's in a Democratic city that, again, is a sanctuary city, because there is video out there of them complaining and then say, well, the police saying, well, we can't do anything. It's a sanctuary city. So then they'll let crime happen. And that has to be brought forward. Election interference, that was ABC and Kamala setting up Trump to say things. But again, I know that he did win 2020, and it's coming out now because, again, It's been done. 60. David Muir said it's been done. No, it hasn't been done. Tina Peters in Colorado is being prosecuted. Brian Kemp is going after the GOP, and they're defunding them doing it to prove what was going on here. So again, the mainstream media working with the Democratic Party and the big deep state is trying to hide that aspect. They're terrified that they're going through. Israel Hamas. Again, I truly believe that the CIA helped fund that thing, and they are causing all this chaos and problems. Get Netanyahu involved.
I
Russia,
think that's probably true as well.
yeah, Russia, Ukraine. No one talks about the fact they stopped the Keystone Pipeline, did Nord Stream, and then somehow it got blown up. They said, "Oh, it must have been Russia that did it." No, it was the CIA. That's come out to be proven true, also true. And then no one talks about it because then they're not going to cover it.
Yep.
They're not going to cover it. So they
Go off, Ruben. Yep.
Right. Afghanistan, again, the 13 that were killed, they didn't bring up that much more. So there was a wash there. Race, the idea that he said she was blacked out. Again, it's the idea that she's a chameleon. She will act one way for another group and then act way for another. So
he had a chance. He had a chance where he could have explained that and what he actually meant. But I just think he didn't even want to go there and let it go into that. He wanted to just be like, all right, I'm gonna like sidestep this because I don't even want to go into that because it's a trap. It's a trap, and it was smart of him. I think he did
correct. And then and insurance again. I hate Obamacare. Before Obamacare happened, I had great insurance. Mm-hmm. And there was a story that happened. I think it was yesterday. I saw someone on TikTok or Instagram, whatever. It was on social media that she's makes $60,000 a year. Her daughter got sick, and she could not get the insurance because again, Obamacare put her in a certain. She's made too much money. So then, in order for her daughter to get the health care she needed, she would have to quit her job, get a lower paying job, and she'd be covered. It's insane. Just like I'm going through the hoops right now. I had great insurance, and then 2 years ago, I was paying everything out of pocket, and I've exhausted everything. And now I'm having to do that right now because again, no one's hiring, no one's giving any money for anything. Like I was saying, I'm telling Haya the way that things are now. That, if you want to start a business, I said, well, if we start a business, a corporation, I'll put you CEO because it's a female-run organization. We'll be able to get some more, get some funds and all that. So that's how it is now.
That's crazy.
It is true. And you go back to her policies and what she was saying. I'm going to help brown and underprivileged people, women get their businesses. Screw white men, screw men. They go get that done.
It's the discrimination they claim to be against. It's
exactly.
Really so ridiculous.
Exactly. And then the last thing they talked about was climate change. Again, it is a hoax. It's a money grab because we need, again, you need carbon. What they're doing now, they don't even talk about it. Farms, they pump CO2 on their plants to get them to grow faster. Yeah. And again, if you know anything about history, long geological history, we had, during the Renaissance, we had more CO2. You had greater winters. They talk about the idea and like the frost fairs in England where the Thames and would freeze over for months, and it would be like that. We don't have that now because again, you'll have extremes in high, extremes in low, and they had it was flourishing. And they don't talk about that. Now their closing statements, Kamala did right. Trump could have done a lot better because again, he was playing defense most of the time during this thing. So, like I said, in my opinion, she got the questions. The ABC helped her out, but that's what you have to do. At least Trump had the balls to go into the lion's den, and he did what he had to do. In my opinion.
Right. And I agree. And a very well-spoken person for the most part, especially on the conservative side of the aisle. When you look back, besides Reagan, for example, in the last 40 years. Nearly 50 years. How many times have you seen any type of Republican type person get into the lion's den? How many? Very few. Again, the last person I thought was going to show some type of kahunas when I first got involved in politics under George Bush Jr. Mm-hmm. He got punked by the media and punked by his opponents, and that just turned me off. And then when the Trump comes in, again, I didn't say I agree with everything Trump says or always does, but I saw somebody who had the heart and the courage to fight for what he believed in. That's why I said that again. If the only perfect person, I don't know everybody's beliefs here, but the only perfect person who walked the face of the planet, was taken out by imperfect people because they couldn't stand it. So with Trump's faults, he's fighting for people at a level that most people really do not realize. And you can get borderline conspiracy theorists or whatever you want to call it, but the truth hurts. What he's fighting for, as he already said in here, we saw it, we witnessed it for ourselves. The man nearly took a bullet like JFK and survived, but survived like Reagan did. Nearly took a bullet simply because he believes in the American system, American values, and he believes in representing the American people. And if people can't see that, it's either because you don't want to see it or you don't do any research and listen to people who can tell
Donald
you.
Trump just tweeted.
What?
Well, I wanted to touch on what Darius said because I think
Okay, go ahead, Daniel,
really
and
important
Ruben, I'll throw it to
because
you.
I definitely had a clicking moment where that finally kind of like sunk in for me at last, because I was kind of, I don't know, I was always very on the fence with Trump. You know, I was already sort of settled. I was going to vote for him this time around, but after the assassination, which by the way wasn't talked about, let's mention that because that's very important, was not talked about, not asked about. Oh, that's not important. Okay. After that, I was like, all right, I'm voting for him. But what really solidified what you're talking about, Darius, like this idea, like, okay, this guy cares, you know, it's not just a front. He doesn't just want to be in the history books or power or this or that, was when during the RNC, the families of the soldiers who died in Afghanistan, which again, sidestepped, not really talked about during the debate, right? She sidestepped that.
Right.
When they were up there speaking and they were talking about like how much time Trump had spent with them and attention that he gave them and how like important that was for them, how meaningful that was for them, how it helped them get through that time period, how they felt like he cared. And the fact that Biden wasn't there, that the president wasn't there. Where was Kamala? Where was Harris? Trump should have brought that up. I think that was something he really should have brought up. But the point I wanted to get on here and what you're saying is during that moment when they were speaking, there was a moment when the camera was on Trump. And if you really look and pay attention, I wish we could find this clip. I hope someone can find it. And you look at Trump and it looks like he's almost going to cry. He really does. I had never seen it. I had never seen him like that. And it didn't look fake. It didn't look like acting. It looked real. It looked genuine. It was the first time I had ever seen him like that. And it really kind of solidified that idea that you're talking about here is whatever you think about him, his flaws, shit he's done in the past, things like that, he believes what he's doing is right. And he does. And it does come from a place of emotion. And it was important for me to see it because it solidified like, okay, whether I like certain things or not about this guy or he's made mistakes, he definitely has a conscience. I don't think you have that sort of reaction or spend time with people in that sort of way and then have them tell you what that meant to you and then to react in that way and not have a conscience. You know, he cares, obviously. And go watch that clip. That's what I'll tell people. Go watch that clip in the RNC when those families are speaking and look at Trump. Just pay attention to him. And he almost died. And after that, he changed. Something was different about him, especially in those few days afterward, in the beginning and through the RNC and all of that. And he kind of settled more back into his old Trump self. But those few days after the assassination attempt, he was different, man. I'd never seen him almost in tears like that. It was interesting.
Agreed.
Moving.
Yeah, basically on True Social, Trump just posted, I thought this was my best debate ever, especially since it was 3-on-1.
That's funny. Boom, Trump.
Tracy?
Oh, boy.
Like I already said, I don't think it was his best performance, but I do think that he hit on some very, very good points. I think his closing statement was fire. He kind of focused in on what he needed to, and that she's already been there. If she didn't do this 4 years ago or 3.5 years ago, she's not going to do it moving forward.
Yeah, I'm glad he said that.
Yeah, I am too. I think, and I also think his "I'm talking now" or "I'm speaking now" comment was fire. He got the soundbite. I love it.
funny.
He got some good sound bites, even though I don't think it was.
And he didn't have to name call to like get those moments too.
Right. No.
So it was just subtle enough where he could get those be Trump.
And
but like,
and this is the thing.
Yeah.
One of the most obvious polling questions that has stood out to me is when people say, "Do you know everything you need to know about Donald Trump?" People are answering that yes in the 70 and 80th percentile, right? But they're saying they don't know Kamala Harris in the same range, 70
What
to 80%.
I said earlier. That's what I said.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think they learned
any
any more about Kamala Harris tonight
Interesting.
than what they already knew. And I think that is the most obvious victory for Trump. They know what Trump is about. And I think in the end, I think he's going to prevail. I'm
monitoring X right now, and basically other people are saying the same thing, that it was a 3-on-1.
Yeah.
Trump didn't do as well, but then the rumor now, again, conspiracy theory, is that that Harris had an earpiece.
Yeah, I've been hearing about that.
They actually showed the earpiece. They took pictures of it, and they showed that this is the version of earpiece she was wearing, which looks fairly similar, but it can't be accurate.
Wouldn't surprise me if she got the questions beforehand.
Right.
It was definitely the moderators and her v. Trump. It was pretty obvious, and the American people aren't stupid. The media likes to portray
some of them are pretty. Some of them are pretty.
Some of us are
stupid, Tracy.
And I want to apologize to everybody. I haven't had wine in like a year, and I drank like 4 glasses of wine tonight, and I'm.
Were you doing it like for certain things in the debate?
I am flying right now, so I apologize. If
don't worry. We got you covered. Here's sort of where I'm at on the debate tonight. I think part of, and this is me too, we saw what Donald Trump did to Joe Biden, or maybe it's better to say we saw Donald Trump stand there and let Joe Biden self-destruct.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of expectation, maybe even myself included, was that Kamala was going to come in and do the same thing. Because Lord knows there'd been enough propaganda flying around on both sides that, oh my gosh, she's nervous. Oh my gosh, she wants this, she wants that, yada, yada, yada.
I saw a lot of prediction that was what we were going to get.
Yeah.
And she was very clearly prepared. But
I agree.
On that note, part of the reason we got the Trump we got is because Trump's been out there talking. Trump's been out there campaigning. Trump's been out there doing interviews. So of course we're going to get the kind of same, like what you could expect, right? Because that's his rehearsal. He doesn't have to like know the questions. He's just going to come in there and this is what I've been campaigning on. Yeah. But with her, it's just like, well, you haven't been talking to anyone else. You haven't been doing interviews. You've had plenty of time to sit here and rehearse this shit, to plan this with your ABC friends or whatever, to get all the questions beforehand, to make sure you're going to be in tip-top shape and be as sharp as possible. Coming into this, you have plenty of time because you weren't doing anything else.
Yeah, right. I mean, and the other things that I noticed, just for my part, words that I kept writing down: cliches, Biden's arguments, straight up lies, arrogance, insults. She didn't necessarily land anything solid, but then again, I could make an argument. I mean, everybody talks about how she prepared for this debate. I'm starting to wonder if Trump either didn't prepare correctly or got handcuffed by his own people. I mean, I really am, because I mean, Gypsy was saying this in chat on the YouTube side. Trump was off his game tonight. I'm sorry, there's just no other way to say it.
I think he kind of winged it. I got the feeling that he winged it. And it kind of goes back to what Darius was saying, though, is like, we do have to remember that is part of the reason he won in the first place in 2016, is people like that authenticness they liked the fact that it didn't feel rehearsed. So I will go back to my initial statement about the closing remarks, and how rehearsed hers felt. And I guess what I meant was like, it was well rehearsed.
Yeah.
But well rehearsed or not, that might not appeal to certain people who see through that already. And they want that unrehearsed Trump who is just like, okay, well, it's Trump. And it goes back to that point of like, well, we know this about him. We know he's like, we We don't need to really learn too much more about him because his skeletons are out there. He's being sued here this way and that way, and he talks to people a lot. For her, it's just like, dude, you weren't fucking talking to anyone, and then you just roll up in here with your performance. And there are some dumb ass people who are going to fall for it. But I want to believe, hopefully, that enough Americans are waking up or just fed up enough to just see through that and be like, all right, this is just it's a performance. Like,
I wish he had said the words, "Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?" I wish he had said those words.
yeah, well, that was what Ruben kind of mentioned before. Like, he really should have.
Yeah,
but I think he said enough in that vein that people understand it. And honestly, the people that are not going to vote for Trump are never going to vote for Trump. The people that are, and it's
I don't think
1 to 2%. And I think he may have reached some of them, like you said, with his just being very genuine and being a real person and not being a rehearsed.
He should have addressed us. He should have, and by us I mean independent voters, unaffiliated people. I think there should be more addressing happening directly. But he did get Kennedy's endorsement. He did get Tulsi's endorsement. Not that these are like huge candidates that I love or anything like that.
True.
But my point is, it demonstrates an effort to me from Trump to try to.
Well, as an independent, Daniel, are you voting Trump?
I am voting Trump. Correct.
Say the word. Say
in
Trump
Pennsylvania.
2024 for me.
Trump 2024. Yeah, I'm doing it. As soon as I heard that news and saw the footage of the shot almost hitting him, the first thing I tweeted was, "He's got my vote." So the first thing I tweeted. After that, it was a solidifying moment for me.
I've been kind of closeted.
I wasn't closeted. I have been kind of saying that that's the direction I'm leaning in, but I was looking at my candidates because that's how I am. Earn my vote. I've
been a very closeted Trump supporter since 2020. I voted for him in 2020. I've been kind of closeted since then, but once he got shot, I put his picture on my Facebook. And
I didn't go all
and I
there,
said, I am a gay American, and I love Donald Trump.
I'm not like super, I'm not like that. I do have a flag, I fly it here and there out front now. But what it really comes down to for me is I didn't like this idea that anyone, whether, whatever the guy's background was, however all that happened, that's a whole other thing. Anyone wants to remove a choice that's on the ballot, wants to take the choice away. The same thing goes for the other things to prosecute. There's been buildup for this. Right. And I'll tell you all my reasons right now why I'm voting for Trump, because I think they're important reasons. There's that, the shooting, the reaction to it. But a big thing for me was how I was treated after being at Jan 6th. Just being there. It doesn't matter whether I was for Trump, against Trump, doesn't matter. Just being there made me a pariah. So how I was treated there, the feds showing up, these are all things that were adding up.
Wow.
The fact that Democrats didn't make any effort to really listen to me, to hear my perspective, to want to talk to me, whereas more Trump people are willing to talk to me. Here I am talking to them. There aren't Democrats inviting me on their fucking show. They don't want to speak to people like me. They view me as a traitor, being gay, all that shit. Oh, how dare you say the things you say? That's one reason. Another big thing for me is the trans issue. And it's one of the things I wanted to see discussed that was not discussed today. And
Daniel?
You're muted.
You're muted. Oh, there you go. No, you're still muted. You're unmuted, but we can't hear you.
Uh-oh.
Okay. And while he's coming back up, the other thing that got me about Kamala was just the emotional argument.
Hello.
Okay, yeah, you're back. Go ahead.
Sorry. Well, yeah, I mean, the emotional argument, and they would have played all that shit too with the trans stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How they would have played, she would have played it if it was brought up. But the point is, it should be talked about. And I don't like how Kennedy has dismissed it. How to him it's just, it's a culture war thing and a distraction. No, that is not a culture war thing and a distraction. That is us being able to discuss and agree upon something that is just a biological fundamental reality, and to be able to state that, not be persecuted in our own country for stating biological facts, and to being able to agree upon that. That's fundamental. That's not some, like, culture war thing. It's incredibly important. It should be discussed. Trump
Mhm.
is at least wanting to start with regulating some of that stuff and is not promoting it, whereas Kamala is. Kamala from the administration sat down with one of these people, Dylan Mulvaney, and gave the official government nod state of approval to all of it and said, this is all well and good. Gender affirming care works and is great for minors and all this shit. No, 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 absolutely not. And that's one of the big reasons I'm voting for Trump. But that bullet almost hitting him and then him almost crying at the RNC, I'm like, that's the guy, and fuck you for trying to take my choice away from me. I don't care who Crooks was put up. I don't care if he was just a single crazy guy. And fuck all the people who said, oh, the bullet should have hit him. How dare you? You must hate this place.
Exactly. That's what it is.
To want to see that pit of chaos open up here and Americans be more divided, and to want millions of children in America to see the former president's head explode on live television.
I
Fuck
wouldn't.
you people.
I
Seriously.
wouldn't want to see a bullet hit Joe Biden.
And I'm an
or
independent
Kamala Harris.
saying, fuck
that's
you.
the difference between us and them.
Right.
I'll concur with you, Daniel. I
don't want to see Biden's head blow. I don't want to see Kamala's head. I don't want children seeing that. And you should not be saying, oh, you should have had better aim and this and that. Those people are also one of the reasons I'm voting for him. Fuck all
exactly.
people. That's what you want to see open up in our country?
Left, Daniel, except
Crazy.
for a few conservative friends, and I count you now as a friend. I don't have a single. I was called like pieces of garbage by people that I've known for 10, 20 years because I came out as a Trump supporter. I'm like, where is this hate coming from? Just the hate and the just vitriol that I see coming from that side. I don't want any part of it. And the fact that, he's not a politician. I like that he's a bull in a china shop. I look at his first 4 years. I was petrified when he got elected in 2016. I thought I was going to be sent to an internment camp because I was gay. I literally had that in my mind.
Your backstory is like Josh. He's very similar. He came from
and
that.
when I saw that we were better off after 4 years of Trump, I wanted him to be reelected. And it's just the kindness and the acceptance that I see in the middle and on the right is much more than I see on the left. And when he took a bullet for this country, that was it. I was out and proud Trump, I'm out and proud Trump 2024, MAGA all the way. You can come for me all you want.
And
that's the way I feel about it.
It's so fascinating too to see, people like you do that such a flip like that from where you were to where you are now, sitting with your American hat on and your red shirt and just saying the things you're saying from what you were when he was elected in 2016 is crazy.
And I agree, Brian, if I may, real quick before you finish your thought on it. And I agree with y'all, and I think y'all make some of the best witnesses on this side of the aisle because that means you've opened your eyes and opened your mind. You see for yourselves. You don't need anybody throwing stuff in your face and having a conservative say trying to force you. Hey, see how good Trump is, whatever case may be. You experience it for yourself. Truth does this. Truth. Most people think that if you tell the truth, that it's going to make everything all fine and good and well and good. No, people do not like the truth as often as much as they make
when you tell the truth and you really do it and you do it from your heart and you do it honestly and you put your all into it, you will struggle in this world. You really will. And it comes from either side. I've talked and exposed things and people on the right as well. And I've had people on the right sort of push me out as well and blacklist me from their shows and all that shit. That's a whole other thing. But my point is I've been canceled, quote unquote, by all the woke. And I understand exactly what that is like. And I think more and more people who've been through that experience, right, this canceling, that's where they end up. They end up where Tracy is, or they end up where I am. An independent, but I'm like voting Republican now because I have all these
I'm a
reasons,
stand-up comedian. I used to do various conferences, mostly atheist conferences, but I can't do that anymore since I recently became a Christian again.
Yeah.
But even before that, I was canceled from those conferences because they knew I was a Trump supporter because they were so captured by the left.
And I think that's terrible. I think that's ridiculous. And I've always found that
my comedy is apolitical. It's not anymore, but back then it was.
Well,
you
think
know?
about it. If they attack people like Dave Chappelle, for example, for the things he said, and some other comedians in that stratosphere, so to speak. But any of us, the problem is this: truth hurts. I had a friend. I'll say this real quick, and I'm over to back to Brian.
It hurts. It hurts to say.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine before getting on tonight. I was heading home. A friend texted me. He said, "Darius," he asked a very genuine question. He said, "Darius, because me and him share content with each other," and he said, "Darius, how is it?" I'm gonna read it real quick. Won't take long, Brian.
Yeah, fine.
Let me see real quick. I know I was going to share this, but I'm gonna do it real quick. He just wanted to know if we was crazy for following these type of stories that we do. He shared some things with some family, and I've told him I've done some of the same with family, friends, etc. And they would get mad at him and say, "Listen, man, you don't need to be watching this stuff on YouTube." So anytime you as a truther say something that does not go with the mainstream media, you are going to be ostracized and attacked. That's how evil and deep it is. I said, "Listen, man," he was trying to, his question was based really on, basically, should he continue doing what he's doing or what? I said, "Listen, you're on the right track." I said, "I'm gonna stay on it. I don't care. I don't have to have everybody supporting me or believe in everything I say." Does it get is it disheartening sometimes? Is it challenging? Of course, because you sometimes you feel like you're on an island by yourself. However, if we can stick together, not regardless of our backgrounds, just based on truth, I think we're gonna be fine overall. Historically speaking, we'll be fine.
Yeah, well, that I think that last point is important too. It's like no matter what happens, I can at least sleep well at night. I know that, I did what I did for my reasons, and I know why I did it. I voted this way or that way, and I spoke out about a lot of things that happened over the last 4 years, and then there were a lot of things that happened to me, and I spoke out about those things too. Like the FBI showing up and stuff. Like, I'm sorry, but why are we spending all this time on a fucking witch hunt? And Trump has a point that he brought up tonight. Why are we not prosecuting in all these other areas? Why are we not prosecuting the people who burned down cities, people who lit the church out, a historic church on fire in Washington, D.C.? Why are they allowed to destroy shit, destroy history, do whatever they want, send the president into a bunker? That's not a fucking insurrection. But when some rowdy protesters do what they did, which, mind you, they broke in one entrance, but were let in on another side of it. It's like the whole thing is so weird. Where are the barricades? Where's the National Guard support? It was so weird. I was there. I listened to Trump's entire speech.
Right.
And when Trump was speaking, they were already storming the Capitol. That was already happening. Yes. He didn't even send the march off to go do their thing. There was a crowd already gathered at the Capitol. This is a point that is not talked about commonly, but this is how it went. That's exactly how it happened. So speak the truth. And this is why, yes, as I said, it hurts to say the truth, but also you will get hurt. Like, they'll throw the system at you and you'll get canceled for everything. Thankfully, I didn't do anything illegal. They didn't throw the book at me. They probably just wanted me to name this person, that person, whatever. But it's a witch hunt, dude. And it's just crazy. I don't see it as a worthy cause to invest all this time and energy into. And I knew as soon as that news came through the crowd of what happened, that there was an actual break-in and that they were forcing their way in. I'm like, the news is going to spin this entire thing against Trump.
Yep.
And this is going to be a nail in his coffin, and in regards to how the next 4 years are going to play out, etc. I thought he would be done for good. I wasn't even sure if he would run again after all that. But it's just to be there, to witness it, to see it for yourself, and then how the government treated me afterward, how people in my life treated me afterward, how the media painted me as like a leper and as like an insurrectionist or all these crazy things, how they, fucking scared my grandma. Like, you're over here questioning my fucking 80-year-old grandma. And she's like, yeah, my grandson's an artist. I don't know what you think he did, what you're talking about,
Yeah.
It's just like, how dare you go around and treat Americans this way, weaponize the government against us in this way. Fuck you. Fuck you. You lost my vote.
Ruben?
Yeah. So then So what I'm seeing right now online is a lot of people are saying there's a mix. Some of the the quartering saying that Trump didn't do that well, and that a lot of Megyn Kelly is saying the ABC was very disingenuous, very disrespectful, and the thing is that every time that Trump brought up something like the Haitians, the immigration, they basically, especially they wanted to fact check him right away. But anything with Charlottesville, which they knew they didn't cover, Trump had one that had to jump in.
Yep.
So
yeah,
they disingenuously were going after fact checking Trump on things that we know are true because we see the police reports say the city manager did this. No, and the fact, but and again, carrying the water for Kamala is why now they again the Democratic Party is now emboldened to say, yeah, she did well. They're gonna again tomorrow it's to say it's all new, and they're gonna spin all the polls to do it. That's how it's gonna work. Yep.
A couple of points, and we'll go ahead and bring the train into the station. I agree completely. Trump was fighting 3-on-1 tonight, which partially is of his own design. I mean, I think everybody was kind of expecting this was going to go like the CNN debate. No, not ABC. They're not going to do that. No. To give you an idea, he brings up the point about Ralph Northam, wanting, basically post-birth abortion. And, so he brings it up. Here's the clip. Yes. For the sake of time, we're not going to play it, but I'm going to go ahead and drop it in chat. Most people have probably seen this, but Ralph Northam, the former governor of Virginia, is very clear on this point. He's like, yeah, why shouldn't we, after the baby is born, maybe it's more humane to just, let it die. And it's just that is not abortion. That is infanticide. Right. Okay. A couple other points. Actually, there's some breaking news. Wow. All of a sudden, here comes Taylor Swift. She's endorsed Kamala Harris. I'm not kidding about this. I'm not kidding. It's out there, folks.
Here we go.
And second of all, and it's being widely reported, Harris's people are apparently open to a second debate. Now, here's sort of my thinking on this. There's one or two things that could mean. That could mean either A, they think he was so easy the first time, give us some more of him. We'll chew him up, spit him out some more. Or it could very well be they're realizing we didn't get the job done tonight. So what that means remains to be seen.
Well, they also probably want to set that choice up, because then now Trump has to decide. Because what if he decides he doesn't want to do the debate? Now he can't decide really to not do it, because then if he decides that, they'll spin that against him and be like, oh, well, look, Trump got beat so bad, he's too scared to come back.
Correct.
Yeah,
he's gonna have to do it if they challenge him.
I think where this is going now, we're almost in Bongino rule territory. Let's see over the next 72 hours what the reaction is, because there's one or two schools of thought about how this debate went. One school of thought says Trump didn't do well. They ganged up on him, but he did not come into this and hit a home run. But I think part of that is offset by the expectations everybody had because of the debate back in June. Everybody was expecting Trump to come in and mop the floor with her.
Yeah, it's like, but you're not talking to a fucking
81-year-old
octogenarian. You're not speaking to that. You're speaking to someone a little younger, who's a little sharper, who can rehearse and perform. I didn't expect it to be like the Biden debate, and I honestly didn't go into it with much expectations at all of if she was going to stumble and fumble and all that.
Yeah,
I figured she would at least rehearse because they would have time.
Oh yeah,
but I wasn't sure what the moderating was going to be like. And Ruben's correct. It's like there were so many points where she brought up very obvious things that could be fact checked, and the moderators could have stepped in and
they did.
Well, actually, Miss Harris, blah 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 blah.
No.
Yeah.
But you did that when he said anything.
Correct.
At all, for any little thing.
He did. They did.
The other school of thought, and this may be Trump's saving grace coming out of this debate tonight, because I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. In spite of all the obvious handicaps and roadblocks that were thrown up against him, I still lay this one on Trump. There is stuff that was basically served up to him on a platter. He did not take the advantage of it the way he should have.
Right.
He could have buried her at various points. Yeah, he got a few sound bites, and I'm not saying those aren't important, but there were things he could have done that could have buried her on several answers and just he let it go.
Yeah, he did.
Now, the saving grace to Trump, if it turns out this way in the perception of people who watch the debate, if it turns out that the American people who were watching this debate tonight come to the conclusion, man, they raked that poor guy over the coals. Those ABC moderators are but a couple of SOBs. That might redound to his benefit. But again, that takes time to sort out, and we'll see what happens. And that's my last thought on it. I'll tell you what, it's 11.
Agree. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with what Ben Shapiro just tweeted out.
Okay.
That this debate changes nothing. We still don't know anything about Kamala's.
She didn't land anything
and
solid.
We already know what Trump is.
Well, I wanted to respond a bit to what Brian said too in regard. Like, honestly, I do feel like Trump came off a bit kind of angry.
Yeah, I agree.
But that leads back into what Tracy said, because that's not something that dissuades at this point.
Yeah.
And I'm, again, independent voter here. My mind has not changed on Trump. I am angry.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see your giggly joy about what's happening in this country. Like that's how, like, I don't want to see that. It's patronizing. Yes, I get it. We need to be enjoying ourselves and all that stuff. Don't be a fucking like joy kill all the time.
Yeah.
But it's serious shit. It's serious.
Yeah,
I don't want to see
country's
that.
in a downward spiral, and I think he showed that he cares.
Yeah,
I'm
and
sorry,
it's like
Daniel.
Trump. Well, no, you're right though. But it's like, but Trump saying the things he's saying about the country. Oh, it's dying and all that. They're spinning it in this way as saying negative.
She ended on a list of promises she was going to do. And then he responded, "You've been in office 3.5 years. Why don't you go down there and do it now?" And then, no, that's the thing. That's the bottom line. So the takeaway here is all that she's promising she could do now. She is in office now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what he could have hammered that point better.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, we might see that. Maybe she will actually get in the seat, and maybe they will do the 25th Amendment.
We don't want her to see.
I'm just saying.
I do. I think she.
They might. You know.
No. I predict that she'll be president by 25th or something happening to Biden, just because they need that. And
I just feel like they're going to want that boost. People are going to feel more secure. Oh, she's president now. Well, we can't.
I disagree. I think it backfires.
It's very possible.
Of course it backfires.
Yeah.
Backfire, yeah.
And with that, folks, we're going to go ahead and bring it to a conclusion. Let's go around the horn. First of all, I want to thank our audience for being with us tonight. You guys have been absolutely fantastic in chat. I want to thank Ruben. I want to thank Tracy. I want to thank Daniel, Darius. Chad had to leave a little bit earlier. Unfortunately, we didn't get his closing thoughts on it, which, Chad, if you're watching this, brother, we want you to come back anytime you want. You are absolutely welcome back here. I'm sorry that we weren't able to give you a proper goodbye, but dude, we were glad you're here. Thank you for everything that you brought to it. So let's go around the horn. Daniel, where can people find you on social media? What can they do to help you out?
You can find me on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. I dead named X. Dan Delafaye right there below, DANDELAFE. You want to support me? I have a tip jar on there. Feel free to tip me, send me money, follow me on there, all that stuff. Yeah. Thanks.
All right. Thank you for being here tonight. Darius, where can people find you on social media? What can they do to help you out and support you?
Check me out on YouTube, Real Talk with Darius. I'm also on X, Instagram. Most of it right now still mainly is YouTube, Rumble, and X, Real Talk with Darius. Check me out, subscribe, and let's get this choo-choo train going.
I'm gonna go follow you, Darius. I like what you had to say today, man. It was nice meeting you, man.
Likewise, we should collaborate again.
Now, by all means, get this gentleman on your channel, Darius. He's a fabulous conversationalist. Tracy, I think by now you've probably come down off of 35,000 to maybe 15,000 feet. You're getting ready to bring it in for a landing. Darlin, where can people find you and that fabulously rebranded channel that you've got? Tell us all about it, and where can people help you out?
You can find me on YouTube at Gen X Marks the Spot, on Twitter or X at I also dead named it Twitter.
I love dead naming it.
At Tracy Barkley. But anybody on here, I mainly do pop culture movies, horror movies specifically. I think I have collabed with Daniel, and when you were with Dangerous Rhetoric, I have collabed with you guys in the past. But any of you that would want to come on and do movie reviews, talk about movies, talk about cinema, talk about pop culture, not necessarily politics, I'd love to have any of you on my channel at any time.
Cool.
So definitely reach out. I'd love to have Darius, Ruben, or Daniel on my channel.
Hey, likewise.
That would be fun.
And speaking of the big fella, Ruben, where can people find you on social? Well, why?
Oh, the big fella.
She said she teed it up for you. I just
I
sorta
know.
started it off club, you know. Where can
here's the
people find
thing.
you on social media?
Everywhere. Just kidding. No, YouTube. YouTube. I have my weight loss quest. This is now basically my health channel because I have a very rare condition which I am fighting. And
Fine.
again, I am going to fight back every single day. I put out there what I weigh, what I ate, how I do my health, and then living that holistic, all natural, non jabbed life. And then I have my main channel on YouTube. I also have Instagram. I'm on Rumble. Also, I have 7 channels there, which I'll be. Yes, I have 7, which I'll be expanding out, doing more videos. But the main thing I'm doing on X, it's X now, thanks to Elon Musk, and because I was banned in 2020, and I had every account I got there. It got banned eventually, but I'm so good that free speech is back. And on there, I put out daily videos, and I basically the idea of the unity party is so strong, and the idea that I have a newfound battle cry to save the republic. So do come follow me there on X for that. Thank you.
Absolutely. And folks, my name is Brian Trippett. I'm the Front Porch Conservative. You can find me on Rumble. You can find me on Twitter. Yes, I'm still old-fashioned enough to call it Twitter. And you can find me on that quaint little alternative social media platform known as YouTube. And the reason that we call it quaint is because they have some very peculiar notions about free speech. And, they're out of step with the times.
Arbitrary, stupid fucking rules.
Indeed. Among other expletives and metaphors we can use to describe them. But please go ahead and subscribe to my channels. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. There's 1,000,001 folks who were carrying this debate, but you guys chose to be here with us. And I speak on behalf of everybody, Chad, Daniel, Darius, Tracy, Ruben. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for supporting all these content creators, my friends. And thank you for supporting me in my efforts. We love you
guys.
Go
follow Brian. Go follow
him. Follow Brian.
Go support him. He's a good dude, man.
Follow everyone here. They're all
absolutely awesome. Sub to all their channels because daggone it, these people are absolutely fantastic. We want to thank you guys for being here for live coverage of the presidential debate between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. I will be back tomorrow night, 7:30 Eastern, for Chatting on the Porch with some post-debate reaction, among other items in the news. And with that, thank you so much, guys. Have a good night. We love you, and we'll see you next time.